Okay. This is more in terms of the next part of it, which is execution and manufacturing. Ideally speaking, some people have customers lined up even before they've executed on their idea. If you're in that situation, it's great because that's when, if you've done the government grant, all of this stuff, you can then go to a venture capitalist and say, you know what, I have a customer and I have a product. So you can't talk down to me, basically, right? You will get yourself a much better deal if you have figured out some of these things before you talk to a VC. And one of the things I think is important to note is that you can make this mistake that you talk to a VC and you say, you know what, all I need is 50 lakhs or 1 crore. And sometimes big VCs actually don't have patience for amounts as small as 1 or 2 crores. It's a waste of their time to actually be keeping track of investments like that. So bigger VCs want that big idea that's going to change the world. So if you have something that needs 5 crores or 10 crores to change the world, be bold to ask for it. The other thing that I am learning myself just now, so I can't claim to be any sort of an expert at this, is there's all of this boring stuff which actually matters once you have a built product, prototype, right? Building processes inside a company, making sure things go on the same way whether one individual leaves or not. All of this stuff is very, very important, and the kind of things that larger companies have obviously figured out just to get there. But in a startup, you make a lot of mistakes and learn things the painful way. So that's enough of Gyan. I just wanted to acknowledge our investors, which is the Nadathur Group, and also a very generous grant that we received from Grand Challenges Canada to pursue the Fabric project. And my entire team at Achira, without whom any of this work wouldn't have been possible, because I don't do any work in the lab anymore. And also Government of India for giving us this DSIR recognition as a company. So thank you all, and I'd be happy to take any questions now.
And discussions, please.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be about science, by the way, or technology, anything. Yes, please. Yes, actually we have considered not just aptamers, but Phage display, basically any new binder technologies, right? And I think they're very exciting. I just don't know if they are ready for a market kind of thing right now, but we have a small research effort going on inside using Phage display to make new binders. So yes, it is an exciting idea. Yes, anybody else? Yeah. That's right.
So wasn't it a bit difficult for you to adapt to the biology part of the startup? And
Okay.
What were the?
Yeah, that's a good question. The nice thing about biology is it's like a nice storybook. You can open a biology textbook and you can really read it like a story, provided you can keep track of all the details, right? But the nice thing about biology, I think, is, and in fact, I'll tell you something, because when I was at MIT, all of the really good biologists, you'll be surprised how many of them, even Nobel laureates, actually didn't do undergraduate degrees in biology. There were people who've done undergraduate economics, mathematics, and went on to do biology PhDs, right? This is not to trivialize undergraduate degrees in biology, but the fact is, the most important skill actually in biology is coming up with a hypothesis and then a skillful way to solve it. A lot of the rest of it is details, right? A lot of people get scared by biology. I got scared of biology because of details. I still have visions of this monocotyledonous and dicotyledonous plants, right? Which all of you would have. Horrible stuff. I cannot believe they made us read things like that because it just scared a lot of people away from biology. But there's a much better way to teach biology. And if you have time, I highly recommend that you go to something called Open Courseware, MIT Open Courseware. There's a course called 7.016, which is taught by Eric Lander and Robert Weinberg, which really teaches biology like a story. You can just watch those videos instead of watching Salman Khan or something like that. It's that much fun. So, okay, I don't know if I answered your question. But yeah, basically, it is not that difficult to pick up the biology that I needed for this. We are not by any means in biology research, right? Now that's a whole other ballgame. We are still a technology company. That is a different skill that needs a lot more time and so on. But we are not claiming to be doing that right now. Yes? The price of each test. Are you a distributor? Okay. It depends actually on the panel of tests that you're looking at. So for something like in the endocrine, a panel of 3 to 4 tests would be about in the 100, 150 rupees range. To give you an idea today, the test to do the T3, T4 and TSH, you'll be charged about 500 rupees. And then in female infertility, the panels could go up to even about 500 rupees a panel. So since you asked that question, one of the important things actually is the cost of antibodies. Antibodies are very expensive, as you probably know, right? So what can be, minimum is about 10,000 rupees a milligram. So one of the nice things in microfluidics is you use much smaller amount of antibody, a monoclonal antibody, than you do in a traditional 96 plate system. So actually that cost comes down significantly.
Hello. Actually, I missed out the first part of the presentation, so perhaps some of these might have
Sure.
covered there. In certain countries, I mean, they've got a mechanism called health technology assessment.
Right?
Right.
Absolutely.
So in that context, I mean, especially when a rather a fundamental shift is being made in the whole approach to the diagnostic technology. So in such a context, I mean, whether that procedure is there as a formal regulatory procedure or even otherwise, how would you have perhaps planned and implemented things like, establishing the cost effectiveness, safety, convenience, and also from a practical standpoint, the uptake and acceptance by physicians and medical practitioners, because this is a diagnostic technology and not something which is directly to the consumer. So
yeah, that's a great question actually. There's a lot of things inside that question. So let me do it one at a time. In India, there is really no concept of technology assessment units and outcome measurements. In fact, in the West today, there's a fairly sophisticated notion of what outcome measurement is, right? So it's not purely, to give you an example, let us say there's a procedure A which costs 1,000 rupees, which is the standard today, and there's a procedure B which actually costs 10,000 rupees and is able to do the same thing in a better way, right? A lot of people may reject procedure B immediately, saying it's 10 times the cost. But the way to do it really is to say, okay, that 10,000 rupee test prevented this many people from unnecessarily entering the ICU, and that could have cost so much to the tax, to the insurance company and so on, and doing that whole calculation. Nothing like that exists in India at all. First things first, right? In terms of more convincing people to use these things, I think most doctors that we've talked to a lot of doctors, immediately appreciate the usefulness of having a result in real time with them, especially in a place like India where, at least in our cities, there is this bundled cost. For example, if you're coming to a Bangalore or a Chennai from a rural area, there's a cost of your hotel stay overnight, there's the inconvenience of it, all of those things. So they immediately appreciate this concept of getting real-time data in certain clinical areas, not in everything, right? So that is definitely, the rapid diagnosis is something that people are very interested to try out. Now in terms of regulatory, of course, you have to go in there, and we're right now going through a clinical validation in 2 sites, where you will go, prove your technology against a gold standard technology, do hundreds of sample points, you have to prepare a dossier, you submit it to the government. Actually, the Indian government, like a lot of other things, there's no clear regulation actually for diagnostics. And so there is a more regulation on good manufacturing practices. So when you submit a dossier, somebody will come down and inspect your facility that's making these things, rather than so much going over the test results. That is useful to convince the final customer. And today, customers are savvy enough that they will definitely look at that. And by the way, a lot of times what happens, even MNC products are launched without going through regulation. There's something called a RUO sale, research use only. So if you are able to convince an Apollo or a Fortis that, look, this is my dossier, this is all the data I've done and it's useful and affordable, they can choose to do it. That's a decision they can make. You don't legally have to have had a regulated in vitro diagnostic test. So the answer is, we have to find these key opinion leader physicians who believe in the technology, believe in its usefulness, and can take it forward. Yeah.
Before you thought about actually starting up,
Yes.
how much time do you spend in developing the technology, developing the IT? Before you
Yeah. So in fact, by the way, we started up when there was nothing. There was just an idea in my head. And that's not the way it should be. That's what I was trying to tell you all. The ideal way it should be is to have a prototype, have some data and so on, and then go ahead and get money, right? But because we didn't have any of that, and the Nadathur people have a nice concept that, in fact, I started working inside one of their group companies called Connexios. So at a low budget, we could start trying out some of these ideas while I was an employee there. And when that got a little bit of traction, that's when we spun it off as a separate company with its own funding and so on. But yeah, technology development cycles take time. It could be anywhere for a hardware product like this, 2 to 3 years is the minimum time it will take. Yes, please. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Fabric sensor.
Uh-huh.
Do you need to have a sterile yarn for this? Because you will have contamination of various varieties.
Yeah. So we actually do sterilize. In fact, there is some, we put it through like caustic soda and so on in our bleaching technique. So there itself, you would kill any kind of bacterial matter that's there. So, and eventually when you are doing a final production kind of thing, by law you would have to do a sterilization.
So because I do see some practical problems before you can actually start using and interpreting it as not false positives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
No, I
effort
mean, so
should be a little larger than in material which can be rather easily autoclaved or sterilized, right? Also, related to this, in your earlier chip where you have the hydrogel,
Yes.
does that chip have a lifetime?
I mean, plastic, it's not so much the plastic, it is the antibody storage. So the nice thing about hydrogels is they can keep protein stable for at least 6 months under room temperature conditions. Because, it is like a native environment for a protein to be inside a hydrogel. It's a aqueous kind of a matrix. So you can actually store these at room temperature and have them functioning the same way for at least 3 months, probably about 6 months.
Obviously, it's not going to be hydrogel in the multiplexed fabrics.
Why not? Oh, in the fabric? No.
So you're just planning to have the channels and patterning it properly so that you have multiple analytes.
Yes, so you would have a split stream, or in fact, we're trying to come up with ways where there are individual yarns even, which split off from a central channel, and where each one is doing a separate test. That's kind of the way it could be done.
You still have to sort out the sterility problem.
It is not such a big deal, honestly. This is what every medical diagnostics manufacturer has to go through, right? The problem that you're raising.
With cloth?
So, I mean, why can't you just sterilize yarn? You would take a big hank of yarn, several kilos, you would just sterilize it in autoclave and then use it.
No, but you're going to weave the pattern in, right? Are
So
going to do
you
that
weave it in a
before
clean
or
room.
after?
You can weave it in a clean room.
Is that what you have set up for?
Yeah, we have a clean room. And I
So-
mean, this is all, I would say, more engineering, practical related issue. There are ways to get around these things. Okay.